Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Monday's Mindful Merchants. You guys already know me. I'm Cali Reseller Luis, and this guy over here, my co-host, the Lone Star Picker. And today we have a special guest. We have down here the Reverend Resale, and of course
Nikki
NikkiT.
T.
Yes, indeed.
She's like, I'm gonna be Nikki T for the rest of my life. But now that is that a nickname you gave her, David, or is that Nikki?
Yeah, when we T was the first initial, was initial of her last name, and she just became my NikkiT, and she has been ever since.
It's stuck. I think I've been called that now for almost 20 years. So.
Wow. That's awesome. I never knew that. That's good. That's good info to know.
Yep.
Well, we're just so happy to have you guys. And thank you for taking the time out of your daily schedule. We know that y'all are family. Excuse me, my ear things kind of give me a buzz here. You all have family. You got daily jobs. Each of you have a job, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Outside of what we would say is our reselling nature. Now, Nikki, I heard in the last few months you sort of jumped, or have you always been in the reselling community, like as a part-time reseller? Or have you been
no, I jumped in as part of the kind of part of the community when he jumped into YouTube. I kind of got affiliated with YouTube family, YouTube reselling community. I didn't actually start reselling until June myself. Okay. So I've only been in it for a few months.
So now you're a reseller as of June, and
yeah.
But it's okay because we hear as we know here on YouTube, we meet so many neat folks, and we're still meeting new folks, and we meet some old folks, and we're like, wait a minute, how long you been doing this? And like, I told you this a long time ago, and it's like sometimes I'm just part time and whatnot. And so let me ask you, Dave, do you consider yourself a full time or a part time?
Oh, very much neither, really. It's more fun time. Being in ministry as a full-time minister, of course, time is always I'm always on call. I'm always on the job. So reselling has been something that I've wanted to do. I've made good money doing it, but it's when time is available, I'm able to list and take time every day to pack orders, and so I spend probably a little more time at it than NikkiT. Maybe even she's overtaken that here in the last little bit, but we enjoy it during our fun time.
Most definitely, yeah. And as a couple, I've heard stories where resellers that are like, one of them is mostly on the reseller, and the other's like, I don't want nothing to do with it. You do, like one's a nurse or one does this job, and the other's like, well. But you guys do share each other's kind of arduous tasks at time when things are trying to be balanced out, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, when he first started, when he first started reselling, I was kind of that way. I was kind of like, that's your thing. I don't really know. And then I actually started going sourcing with him a bit and kind of watched. I still wasn't really into it. And then I guess.
And there was a couple of videos where I've seen you jumped in a few times where you're like, I'm getting good at this, and y'all because I've been watching y'all for a while, and then I was like, wait a minute, Nikki's not a reseller, but you're jumping in there grabbing some goodies at times, weren't you?
I was trying. I was learning as watching him, and then watching who he was watching, and then honestly and truly, it was Sam Dapper Tiger when he started talking about Mercari, and it was a different platform than eBay, and he was like, really, guys, Mercari is one of those. It's a great platform. It's very user friendly. It's really good to the sellers, and it kind of piqued my interest a little bit more. So that's kind of when I started really jumping in. So
where it was a different world when you kind of went in there and you're like, oh, I'm here now, because I've been trying to get, like, for example, a family member of mine, my daughter, for a long time. I think I've pretty much burned almost the bridge of her, like, any hopes of trying to get into reselling like that. I don't want to do it. And the other day I got to see her. She's been with school and whatnot, so it's been kind of hard for us to connect because she lives in another part of town. And all of a sudden she says, oh, yeah, Dad, I have a Depop account. I'm like, oh, I said, you buying stuff? And she said, no, I'm selling things now. And I'm like,
oh, cool.
Okay, it's like, and the whole thing came up because we were at I think it was like a Goodwill bins where you go find clothes and junk and stuff. And yeah, she was getting into it. And so I thought, okay, she's going to do it on her terms, and that's good. And and that's the interesting thing, because I've seen some I've heard stories, and not as a gossip thing, but just as an experience or an observation, is I've noticed like couples sometimes that can work against them too. How do y'all think that? I mean, I'll let you speak. How do you think that works for you guys?
This one, yeah, I think it. If I had forced, or I think I just showed NikkiT that I enjoyed it, and we started watching. She really, when I started watching YouTube videos, I guess she sort of watched it over my shoulder, and then she dove in really head over heels or heels over head into the reselling community. And when she did that, she saw that what I was saying wasn't just from my perspective. There was a lot of others that enjoyed it as well. And we saw some reselling couples, and of course, Colton and Courtney and Rally Roots, just some others that were couples that were doing it. And she said, hey, let me get in the videos. Let me do this. And I was honored. I mean, there's nothing else I'd want. We're a team in life. So I think being a team and reselling is only natural.
I think that's great that you said that. It does. To me, it comes across as very natural. But I know your rapport with y'all. I love the way you guys flirt, but I also love the way you guys will have your own opinions, and that's wonderful too. Before I go any farther, I think we're going to take a moment to breathe, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to look over to our live chat, and we just want to thank everybody for being here. We got a good little crowd here. I haven't seen how many. Luis, on your end. Did you want to go ahead and post some stuff up? We got Art Vandalay in the house. Dan is here. We thank you, Dan. We got so many people. I'm trying to go back to the beginning. Here we go. We got Tim Powell's in here. Smoking Flips, Hemlock Lady. She says, hello, Cali, Louie, Nikki, and Dave. Look at this. We got a nice little cozy crowd. Some of them we're familiar with here. I think Smoking Flips, I get to see y'all sometimes, here and there. Tiffany's Cool Finds is more recent, I want to say. Are y'all familiar with Tiffany's Cool Finds?
Yeah, I am. I'm familiar with Tiffany.
Okay, good. So we got everybody coming out. That's wonderful here. Let me just look. Am I going on the wrong? Oops. There's my StreamYard. Looking at
Valley Holmes.
Okay.
Hello, welcome.
Hey.
Jennifer Hayes is here.
Best mod in the biz.
Yep.
And I hope her hand is. Let everybody send her some well wishes and some prayers at her hand. She says, "I'm sure I'm doing fine," but when you got pins in those things and weather, that ain't funny,
And Powell's here too, saying afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Tim, for coming. We enjoy seeing you every time you guys show up here. Dragon Value Home was, I think he was on a live with me the other day.
Yeah.
Is it Christopher, I believe is his name? I want to say.
I think so. I'm not so sure. Aaron is here too. Aaron Clutch. He's been on.
Oh yeah, Aaron. Yeah, Aaron's here. Good deal. Well, let's continue on here. Let me get my chat thing. I think I got I'm looking at StreamYard. I'm not a perfect host here. I'm like I get that pop-out screen and I'm looking at StreamYard as opposed to looking at making sure I got the mute things on and stuff. Well, let's see. Luis, you had a question that was kind of, a general one, but it'll kind of crack back open the idea of reselling. And I think, was it for David or, it's really for both, but.
Yeah. How do you guys, I know you guys wear many hats. Mm-hmm. So how do you guys balance your time with doing each particular thing, whether it's the reselling or teaching, or of course you said being a rev, it's a full-time, on call.
Yeah. I think for us and anyone else in any business is that you have to have certain priorities, and not saying that because I'm in full-time ministry that I can't do other things, or because family comes first that I can't do other things. But I think just keeping things in balance and just making sure that you're not overloading, overloading the family and overloading the full-time ministry. So that really gets back, for me, it gets back to making sure that I'm trying to figure out the best way of saying it, making sure that the fun time avenue of what we do on YouTube and what we do in reselling and then the other YouTube channel, that we keep it in balance. Because if we focus too much time in one, if you get it out of balance, it'll make all the chips fall. So I think just finding that balance, prioritizing your time. When you have time to do it at 100%, and it's gonna pay. I think.
Yeah.
It definitely will. Yeah, go ahead, Nikki. I'm sorry.
I mean, for me, mine's, my hours on my full-time job are pretty set. I know, my days are 8 or 7 to 3. I'm at work. And then when I come home, I'm the same way. I prioritize when I'm home. It's, kids, family, and then reselling. Really, that's the order for me. Is when I get home, family, and then I'll dive into reselling. Make sure that they know that they are a top priority for me. And they're one of the reasons that we do this. The kids are one of our big motivators. We resell for our family and for others. It's not just a hobby. I mean, that's a big motivation for what we do. So,
well, I mean, going along with that whole priorities, prioritizing of what needs to be most essential. Sometimes we do neglect things in our life. We're talking about, and one of the things in the show we like to talk about, is the betterment of our body, mind, and health. And it's kind of that, your body is your sanctuary, and you need to take care of it. And it's like, don't neglect it if you can. And part of that is sometimes, when do you have time to really? It was part of a question I was going to ask you, Nikki, was like, talking about, like Luis asked, like, we're all wearing many hats. I know you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a teacher. You're also kind of in that shadow of, like, the Reverend's wife, kind of, aren't you, in some way? And it's funny because I just thought I'd bring it up because some of it's playful, but some of it could be like, I know this because of the churches I go to, and I remember the roles, how essential seeing that, the Reverend's wife is, and sometimes people come to you thinking everything and schedules or whatnot, and that could be kind of a weird thing where you're like, okay, let me prioritize this, of like, this is who I am, this is where I'm at, and it's like, and then they're thinking, you got it all, under control, or you're in charge and you got these things, and it's like, well, I still have things I need to do for myself. You do work a full-time job. So
I think one thing with us that I think has been is, yes, we wear the hat of a ministry couple. He is a pastor, I'm a pastor's wife. But I think one thing that we try to hope everybody sees in us is that while we are that, we still are human, just as human as the next. If you cut us, we bleed red, just like everybody else. So perfect are we? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to ministry or anything, if someone demands, if the demands outweigh what is actually able to be done, then I would step in and say, hey, look, that's not what we're called to do. I'll bend over backwards and do anything for anyone. But when anything demands too much of your time, sometimes you have to cut bait. Sometimes you have to step back and say, hey, is this actually right, or are you just abusing my time? So anytime that happens, I think it's wise to speak up.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. So, like, when Luis and I were starting this idea for this concept of the show, is like, how do we invite folks to talk about these kind of things that you're talking about? Like, and one of them is setting boundaries, such as, I'm assuming that's kind of, pretty much in generally what you're talking about. Because we have our priorities, and we need to, keep those, keep those things always, in a certain fashion, in a certain way. We're like, okay, if this isn't getting done, I need to worry about something else. But I think boundaries is one thing I like to really bring up, and it's and it can come up in different ways and different forms. Where, like, emotional boundaries too. People sometimes forget that, like you're saying, Nikki, we bleed, but also we have a heart. Like, people probably, I can only imagine, from your perspective, David, like, you're a reverend and you get people coming to you a lot of times to be consoled, or ask for suggestions and advice. But, I'm just kind of curious, like, how do you spin those plates when you come to the point where, like, you're looking at your own boundaries? It's not that somebody's taking you for granted necessarily. Like the example you may have said, like, where somebody's like kind of like overstepping and like, well, hey, that's not necessarily our responsibility. Thank you. We'll pray for you. But
I think that's that's a struggle, and that's always been a struggle for me, because I think I lean the other way. I give people grace. Gave a guy a ride home probably 5-6 years ago, And on the ride home, when I came back, everybody says, "Hey, I really didn't feel comfortable with you doing that. That guy was a little different." But it ended up, he asked for money at the end of the ride, and I pulled out my wallet, had a 50, a 20, and a 10. I was going to give him the 20, and he reached over to grab my wallet. And when he did, I threw my wallet in the floor of the truck, got punched in the face, and got punched in the mouth as I was trying to hold the guy off. Now, that was a physical altercation. But I think there's a lot of people, no matter in ministry or in reselling, that try to bully themselves in and demand all of your attention or all of your time. And not only is that not fair to me, but it's not fair to the others in which I'm ministering to, or the other other things that are going on. So I think it's wise for us to make sure. I like that you said boundaries, because when you don't set boundaries, what you do is you become a doormat, and you let time run over you. You let resources just flow. I mean, so you have to. I think boundaries. We talked and kidded around a little bit before the show that you had notes. I think notes are boundaries. It sort of keeps you in a place so that you can be productive. And I think for all of us, resellers, YouTubers, ministers, whatever your job is, putting yourself, kind of honing yourself down is what we all are called to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, I mean, excuse me if this sounds a little bit like insensitive, but I don't mean it as such, because I've always looked at a minister's role sometimes as sort of like a reseller, in a way that we have something that we need to share. If you want to buy it, it's there. I'm bringing the horse to water. Y'all don't need to drink it, but it is here available. And here's some really good water, and so to speak. But it's one of those things where, like, I think those skills, I can see that would set you up to being a really mindful reseller. Like,
I think most ministers that have part-time jobs are usually insurance salesmen, because I think they're.
My uncle he was a pastor at Many Baptist Church, and he would move around from Lubbock to every part of Oklahoma. I mean, that man was moving constantly. I never got to see my aunt and my cousins, but he sold insurance. He sold other things too. Yeah. It is kind of interesting you say that, but I don't know. I'm thinking of something that I was watching, I think, and we're going to have him on next week, is Christopher from Daily Refinement. There was some stuff that he was just going on about. Like, we know some of the stuff that he talks about as resellers is like consistency is always key. Habits win. And that stuff that I'm sure, a man of the cloth is like, you're going to teach people or remind them, that your job is to help remind them, and is keep those good habits always in check, What things do you guys, both of you, do? And I want to hear from both. Maybe start with Nikki. Like, what progress, that you look at on a daily basis? Like, what do you do? Like, what habits would you say that you need to improve? And what habits have you seen improve in the last, or since you started selling?
Habits to improve in reselling. I would definitely
personal habits too.
Okay, for me, initially on the topic of reselling, I do need to get better at listing. I used to right away, I'd buy it, list it on the thing, good to go. I've kind of slacked a little bit. So that has actually kind of regressed for me a bit. And I think that's because I'm being new come June, which is not an excuse, but I'm learning now, balancing the full-time job, the reselling, family. When all this first started, COVID and all that, I had all the time in the world. The doors were closed, and I was here, and I was able to pretty much, do it all hours of the day if I chose. Now I'm not. I have a schedule set for me for work, and my kids now have school, and they have, needs and demands that they need from me, homework and all this and that.
And so those boundaries got to come back into play. And I remember earlier, it may have been, when did you start school? Start teaching again?
We went back into the building in September. I went back the very end of September. They were gracious and allowed me, because the kids could not enter their building until a certain time. Yeah. They allowed me to be home with them until they were able to enter back. So I have only been back for a little over a month now.
That's really interesting to see, because you just like not even weeks before that, you're starting to do a little reselling. And I remember reading, or maybe I think it was in one of y'all's lives, and you were I could sense it, and I think you did verbalize it openly. And correct me if I'm wrong. Like you were like there was a little trepidation there, like, oh, I'm getting ready to go back to work, and I could tell it, like, I want to go back to do some reselling too, or maybe it was just about like, how are you going to balance those?
There was a little. I actually made the comment to Rev. I was like, what if I just resell full time?
Love it. Oh, one day, maybe
one day, yeah.
Maybe one day, but there was a little trepidation. I mean, just because I knew a balance was coming, I was gonna have to learn how to balance everything. To be fully transparent, not knowing about what's been going on, not knowing about this, illness that's going around. You hear all sorts of stuff. So it was just, of course, some trepidation about that. As a mom, Mama Bear comes out, and you want to protect your kids. So
yeah.
I think, for all of us, I think we've sort of been going through a little turbulence, and it always takes a little time for the plane to level back out.
Yeah.
And I know for me in reselling, you talked about consistency, and that's what consistency does. The first time you drive a long distance, but then if you start making that drive every day, even though the time's not going to change, it's going to feel shorter because you've sort of created a habit. This is what you do every day. And I think when we get out of that routine, or when we're in turbulence, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for us to get back into that. And I think for us, we're learning a new routine. I think all of us are learning.
I think we're learning it all the time. I think one of y'all just said this a little while ago. It's such an exceptional time, like here and now. And without getting into politics, this is like a political season.
Oh, yeah.
This is a time of solace where we're, in terms of our science, we're being confronted with something that my mom's husband, who's pretty much closest to, he can remember when he was young with the, what is it I'm trying to say? My mind just brain farted. It was,
the Spanish flu.
No, not that. I was just thinking of the Great Depression. Kind of going through like a national turmoil that was like just shake everybody up. And Louis, he's like, I've never seen anything like this. This gentleman's almost 90 now, and it's like to hear stuff like that. So there's so many things we're taking on. So part of the show that we were doing, here with the Mindful Merchants is we do have householder stuff. We have to constantly keep in check. Yes, it is part of our boundaries. It's just a part of, like, I think if you live in this society, you want to do your best, and part of that too is like, well, we're here on this land of, I jokingly call it, do you remember, do y'all remember this? Nikki may be a little young. I think both of you might remember this. Max Headroom. You remember that TV show? Max Headroom. All you got to do is YouTube it. And it is. I think it was probably the late '80s, right in the early '90s. And it was a science fiction thing. It actually came from Britain, but they made a United States version of the TV show in the '90s. And this it was like I don't know if he was an android or what, but he lived inside of a TV.
Yeah, I remember who you're talking about now. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of it was an American comedian, but it was like for a British setting, in terms of the plot. It was very sci-fi, and I think that's kind of where we are today with this YouTube. We're here, we want to be a part of this. And I think some of it is, one of the things we like to address is, we all come here for, I think, pretty much the same thing. It's a lot of it camaraderie. We love the connection. We do want to learn, first and foremost. I think a lot of people sometimes stumble into this Max Headroom world of YouTube, and it just like, oh, look, a talking head, and oh, I learned something. I can fix my car. I can fix, my dryer or whatever, or just, oh, I'm learning something on, my daughter's like, I learned how to do makeup. But then there's these connections where you start making these little dots line up, like one day I'm like, all of a sudden I'm talking over here to Luis, and I'm just like, hey, give me a call. I just feel weird that we're typing all the time, and my fat thumbs are getting tired, and you get to hear a voice on the other end. This is beautiful.
What you're saying is so true. I mean, we're all sort of in the same boat that's taking on water, and we're all dipping. I mean, we're all putting our buckets in the water and dipping it out. And yet sometimes some get on YouTube and act like they've not been dipping water all day. I mean, we're all going through the same stuff. So it's a good thing for us to come together. I think that's why NikkiT enjoys this community so well, is because a good majority of the reselling community sort of has that camaraderie. We understand one another because we're going through some of the same stuff. So it builds that friendship, it builds that relationship, and
it's one thing that you get to understand that, and that's really imperative. But I think it's the other thing is to see that not only that you're getting that need met in some ways, but understand truly deep down in your heart. One thing to understand it, but another thing to really understand the wisdom of it is that these are people on the other side that have just as many problems as us.
Yeah.
There's people that like, wow, I didn't know you were going through that today.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see it, and like you said, we get to these things where we're like, all of a sudden, somebody they're your friend, and you see them really, really deeply struggle. And I think that's why we said, if we're going to do this show, our main intention is it's got to be about some sort of connection, but it's got to continue the flow of what I call it's not just connection, but it's collaboration. Collaboration is going to be a constant relationship, and that, brother. Like being in a church, you see people come and you see people go, and then when they come back, it's such a joyous occasion, isn't it? When you see people that you loved, and you're like, I'm glad you're back. I hope you're doing well, and I want to see you do better.
And consistency, Louie, in all of it. And to me, I think one of my favorite analogies to look at, not just in reselling consistency, but in life as a whole, is kind of like an athlete in training. You can't decide you're going to run the Boston Marathon and only run once a week and be prepared for it. And to me, reselling is like that. That's that long end goal game. The more you do it, the more consistent you become on your training, your listing, your sourcing, your learning, the better you get at it. And the more it becomes habit. And so when that marathon comes, you're ready for it. And then also the more you train, if you have to set a boundary one day, it doesn't hit you nearly as hard. If you only train once a week for a Boston Marathon and then you quit training, you're out of luck.
Well, look, that's a great analogy. Look at the sports today, like in NFL. There's all these athletes, these Roman colossal guys of today. They want to get out there and play, and then all of a sudden, there's 12 of you. You can't play. You got coronavirus. Go in the back burner for a little while. And when it's just like things are. I like, and I know where I'm going with this, David. Is like it's not on our time. Things just happen. And things, the one big fact that, Luis and I always talk about, like, things change, we don't have control over it. And the one thing that's permanent pretty much is that you don't know when change is going to happen. It's because it's, it's those things where you're going to kind of just beat your head in the boat. Let's jump subjects here real quick. Other than the Bible, what would you say is one of the biggest books that has influenced you? What is your most influenced?
I don't know. I have to think about this.
Influenced your life, or just and it could be just something like when you were younger, like this wonderful children's book, or it could be a book you're reading now, going, "Wow, that kind of hit me in a different way."
Yeah, Alexander Dumas. There's a lot of older books I'm reading all the time. That's one of the things that in life that I try to make sure I'm always reading the Bible. Always like to have, because I'm a preacher, I'm a storyteller, so I want to be able to tell a story. I'm always reading a fiction. Probably to me, one of my favorite books of all time is The Count of Monte Cristo. And it's got a guy that goes way, way down, and through effort and through a lot of different things, he comes way, way back up. So that sort of helps me to don't get too low and don't think it's over. And I think you talk about mental health. I think it's easier for a lot of people to hit a pothole and just quit driving. But you can't. I mean, you can't give up. You can't quit. You got to keep going. And that's just one of the books that just came to mind when you said that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's actually a great book. I haven't read that one in a long time.
Oh, wow. One of the best stories.
It's almost like a joke.
One of the best stories, yeah.
Yeah. There's always something after the fact. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nikki.
I was saying I have to think about that one. I don't know.
No, that's okay. No, and we ask these questions because, one of the things I like to emphasize is that, if we're talking about strategies, and as resellers, we're always looking for the next new, kind of like little way I can do a ninja move, and just like, is it through, buying multiples of something like that, and just getting in and out, doing a little arbitrage and sneaking it around there. But I think it is a little bit more than that at times. As resellers, we need to constantly be in check. I wake up every day. Some people call it a wish. Some people say it's a prayer. I just, it's, to me, it's still an affirmation of like your positivity of like, if your heart's set on like keeping your aim and focus, if you're an archer, you're going to constantly, every day, you're going to try to keep that aim, because you can't hit the target if you're only hitting 40 and 30 before you go down to 20 and 10 and that target. And so your goals are like imperative, on a constant basis. Is there any struggles that you've had lately with goals or aims that you like, or is there something that you're trying to focus on right now?
You were talking about books, and I don't know why I didn't think of this one. I actually looked down, and Tim Powell said, James, good book. And I was looking back, I didn't see.
Cali Picker.
Yeah, I was, one for me is also Tim Collins, I think, was the guy that wrote the book From Good to Great. And I think the concept in that book is that there's so many times, I've used it in ministry settings, but it's more of a business setting.
It's very much, but it can be our life.
Yeah, but he gives the idea that sometimes we let good get in the way of great. We just sort of just do just enough to get by or to make it good, and we're not really striving to do what's best. And I probably need to hear that today myself, because there's so many. I think we all need a breather. I've sort of been in a long, extended breather in this COVID, and since things have got started back in reselling, but my reselling game has been off, but I need to get back into it. I need to.
And that's part of that change. I was telling you, like when change hits us, you don't get to say when it's gonna, end for you. It's like sometimes you just need to take that reprieve and retreat. And and I know my pastor at the community that I go to. Thankfully, we have a board that is very sensitive, and they're very conscious-minded about that. He's not asked if he wants to go on a retreat. He's required to go on a retreat. And he comes up there, and sometimes he bawls a little bit. He says, I just can't tell you how honored I am. He's like, what a privilege it is to be a part of a community that requires me to take a 2-week hike. 4 of them sometimes, like up to it's almost 2 weeks. But like by the time he returns, it looks like 2 weeks. But he's got to go and do like silent prayer, and it's like time of solitude and quiet where he gets clarity. I think resellers, we forget that, especially those who are be under the guise of I'm YouTuber and I'm a reseller YouTuber, and then they forget that, here's 2 plates I'm balancing. All of a sudden back here is my daughter, my son, my wife, my husband, family members, and things happen, with people. You need to kind of go, all right, put that plate down. You don't need to spin it right now. And it's like, it's very interesting to know that as resellers, when do we take time to do that? And it's like, I've seen.
Louie, I think the time you do that is the day before you need to. Because if you do it the day you need to, you're probably really, really, really close to tearing a lot of plates apart. So I think doing it before it's too late. So the best thing would be doing it a little early.
I think you got a good point. Sometimes, if I can say that I do, there's a certain aspect where like I'll be eating away and not sleeping enough. I'll wake up 4 hours, try to go back to reselling stuff again. It's like no, but like this last weekend when I had an opportunity to go see my daughter, I cut the cords on everything, and it felt so good. It was just like, what am I doing? I just need to back off a little bit. I finished a project with Nana Tink Treasures we're doing on ephemera, and I told Louis, says like, I don't know how half this community, like you, Rev, and Nikki, it's like how just you do once a week alive. I don't know how y'all do your content on top of that and what you're doing in life, so it's good to hear you say this. I think it's important to record something like this so that when a new reseller comes along, I hope somebody goes, oh, red flag. And like you said, okay, instead of you realizing, like you said, the moment before, and then this crash, come up and greet you. Yeah. Louis says, go ahead, Nikki.
One of the best pieces of advice you can give to a new reseller too is that it's okay to unplug. You don't have to, even if you're not a reseller, you work a full-time job, you still take vacation days. You still unplug from whatever you're doing. So it's no different in reselling. You shouldn't feel bad. You shouldn't feel guilty for needing that time to unplug and just, turn eBay off for a day, turn YouTube off for a day. You need that for your well-being sometimes, just that reset to just get back.
I think it's almost like a prerequisite. I wish some way, it's you got to be careful when you say you need to do this. Because when you tell somebody what they need to do, but it's we say these other little things in our community. I hear people say, "Hey, reach out. You're lonely. You're this or that." Like when I had Emily call me on here, we had that, was it the HALT thing, Luis? Was it hungry, angry, tired, and or what was it? Oh, lonely. Whenever you feel one of those things, either have somebody reach out to you and say, "Hey, I noticed you seem a little off kilter," in a polite, diplomatic way, where hopefully before they stop spinning those plates and let it drop, and it's like, because I see people where, and I've felt it, we're like, oh, is this what the beginning stages of burnout might want to smell like? Because I don't want to go there, and it's hard because like my mom's getting old and there's stuff that's happening to her, and I want to be there for a family member, and it's like, but then you got family members that all of a sudden, they're just like in hospital. And I'm working with another person that used to be a reseller, and she's kind of going through a lot of tragedy right now. And it's like, she's a YouTuber. And I'm like, you can't be in control of everything. You just need to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you can't take care of other people,
I couldn't imagine the pressure that would be on someone that is reselling for a full-time income, because then it becomes a job and not fun time. It becomes a job. And when it becomes a job, I still think it is important. Not saying that you're going to lay it down for a week if it's your income and it's something that you need, but that you do make time for yourself. Because if you don't make time to rest, if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating healthy, if your body shuts down on you, you're not going to be able to make any money that day reselling. So it's good to make sure you've got all of that balance.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I'm kind of in that category a little bit, except for when my girlfriend comes around. But it's like, I'm just like, hey, you want to help? No, we're going to go to dinner. I'm not helping you wrap your packages. Do that. It's like, well, let me see. Luis, did you have something else you were going to go into, or can you remember anything? Or
no, I mean that what you guys were talking about the burnout stuff. I know we've talked about that quite a few times, where when you feel that you're gonna just lose control of everything, you just need to take a step back, and you need to get, you need to be healthy with your body, with your mind, but also with your heart. You gotta take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, how do you expect to, do everything that you need to do and everything that you need to take care of if you're not taking care of yourself? And a lot of people don't sleep, or they just do way too much of what they're expected to do, and it's like, hey, you need to take unplug yourself, just like Nikki said. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, Emily Conway also touched on that, when on Mondays she doesn't go on her electronics all day.
After she did the show, she goes back and she goes, Louie, and it blew me away. And I said, Luis, guess what she's doing? And she told us both, and it's like, what? She's like, I am, because we talked about how important, like you just said a little while ago, Nikki, sometimes you just do need to really literally take that plug and just pull it up, and unplug it. And it's because, what am I missing? There's that FOMO of like, oh, who's on live, or on YouTube, or this and that. And I'm trying to list, I'm trying to do this, I'm watching YouTube, and and then you want to enjoy a game, on TV, forget it. There's like too much going on. It's one of those things where, there was something I was going to go into about that. Oh, but Emily,
in our branding, one of the things on our channels is that we call it fun time restoring the old cars, fun time reselling. And for us, that is kind of the moniker that we want to remember, that if it ceases to be fun, then that's probably a sign for us. We need to step back a minute and kind of look at it, because we don't want it to become a job, because we already have a job. We already have all of these other things that take that position as being a job. So reselling is fun time, and when it's not fun time, that's when I need to step back, because I don't want to lose it. Man, we enjoy this community. We enjoy the Rev Resale channel,
100%.
And we want to keep it going.
Lines too, where like you said, there's some guys that are, and ladies that are just doing this full time, but by themselves,
Yeah, that's right.
So it's that constant, arduous, like, are they even checking their own boundaries? So like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, when we're trying to be mindful merchants, mindfulness is about being aware. You know, like I joke, like when I'm on a listing live, which tomorrow I may or may not join them, depending on where I'm at, is a brother Eric, OBX Picker. You know, he's on that sucker for 8 hours, and I joke with him, he's like, Louie, you sound like an old grandma. You know, it's like, ask me, did you eat something? You know, it's been 6 hours you've been listening here. It's like, oh, I got my bag of snacks, you know, and he'll come out with something. And I'm like, that ain't food, brother. You know, get up finally and go to the kitchen and, you know, get something to eat, because, you know, you can push yourself so far. And it's like I said, whether it's rest and, you know, getting good night's sleep, eating something, or just knowing, like, when you're in an anxiety-driven thing. So if it's about mental well-being and you do have mental health issues, you know, or like you got PTSD or something, you need to learn to come and check, you know. So let me ask you this, and it may sound like a ramble, but I believe it or not, I'm getting around. I'm taking a long turn on this curve. Is that, do you guys keep a journal? Like, I would assume maybe you might, Dave. I don't know.
I do. Yes, I have a journal that I keep, and it sort of keeps me in balance in a lot of things. Of course, for me,
because it's reflection, or
yeah, I'm able to put stuff down. Of course, I used to pre-pandemic. You know, I would preach sometimes 5 and 6 times a week. You know, or either teaching a lesson or preaching that many times. So for me, there's times that something will come across and I'll need to write it down, or it sort of forces me to study and prepare and go through that. So I make notes even in reselling. I mean, if I'm driving down the road and something's
going to ask you, how do you correlate that with the reselling thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's all kind of things. If I'll see something and think, hey, I haven't checked this place out in a long time, and I'm driving by maybe to go make a hospital visit or something, I'll write it down, or I'll say it into my phone, and those little reminders.
Keeping a journal, it could be your phone.
Yeah, right.
But whatever technology works for you. Or do you have a tablet? I actually like to pen write in a book.
I like to read real books, and I like to hold real journals. I'm old-fashioned that way.
Because when you're unplugged, nobody said you can't get your journal and open that book, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
But in literal sense, it is good, because I'm getting ready for, like, a gentleman, Christopher, Daily Refinement, and I watched one of his older videos a long while ago, and I went back and something told me, said, go back and watch that again. And he was talking about, he keeps journals. Yeah. And he kind of used a negative, and I was like, I'm going to get on to Christopher about that. But he goes, I wrote something that I wrote a month ago, and I thought, what an idiot. You know, I'm saying this stuff or thinking this stuff. But what it is, and I understand where his heart was, and what he meant is look at this difference of growth. I may have, you know, I'm able to afford myself a time of reflection to go, oh, yeah, you know, that's not a I don't like that habit. I want to improve, you know. So I think resellers, we can take our banter and kicking the soccer ball back and forth and really enjoying it. But sometimes we keep forgetting that, and we need those reminders. But I think once you put it down, like on paper, it's solidified. And like you said, you can come back to it, reflect on it. Let Nikki sneak in it when you're taking a nap, and she can see what you're thinking. No.
Amen.
So let me go here, Luis. Are you sure you want to sneak in a question here?
Sure. Yeah, I have a question. I know Nikki does the reselling, and sorry about that. How are you doing with the Macari? I know you did the Macari, right? How is that going for you? Because for myself, I'm a full-time reseller on Macari. So
yeah, I love Macari. It's going pretty good. At first, I would have a sale here or there, kind of a lull, and then another sale. But my sales seem to be actually picking up, where they're becoming a lot more consistent. And I love it. It's easy. I love Macari for the fact that they really support the seller. They seem to truly have the seller's back on that side. But I'm close. I think I'm close to 300 listings.
Really? You're already up to 300 there.
Yeah. So
much better a listing than I am.
Yeah. To me, it's easy. Everything can be done from
the phone. Yeah.
The phone right there, and your listing's up. So, but I enjoy Macari. I think I'm gonna stick with it. I think that's gonna be my platform. Is gonna be Macari.
Well, it's interesting, because I was also, that same video I was watching, Daily Refinement. So it was funny, but this was like 2019, probably early from there. Like, I think they may have mentioned Mercari. If not, it was like Poshmark, one of those. And he's like, which is the better one? He's like, oh, most definitely eBay. But, you know, there's truth in that eBay is not necessarily better, but it definitely gets the traffic.
Well, I think eBay is it's a much bigger platform right now, and it's been around for so long. Everybody knows.
It doesn't make it better.
eBay, and everybody knows eBay. I think Mercari, you know, it's a newer up and coming platform, and I think Mercari is it can go toe to toe with eBay depending on what you're selling.
Oh, I'll tell you, NikkiT makes more money off some of the items that she sells on Mercari, and they actually sell that for me they probably would not sell on eBay, or if they sold.
I'm not arguing because my buddy over here, it's like he's a Mercari guy. You know, I don't know if you know that. Did you know that?
I think they're both great platforms, and I think, you know, to me, that's one of those things as a reseller, find your niche. If eBay worked for you, totally do eBay. If Mercari,
they're not the only platforms out there. That's the thing there, because like, I was doing another platform with eBay, and that's like Depop, but I knew it's because of a certain niche of what I was selling. Like you said, if you can find what you're good at selling and it works well, jump into that boat and, you know, row it, you know, as fast as you can. There was something I was going to bring up, but I guess I lost it in there. Go ahead. What were you going to say, Luis?
Oh no, just saying hi to Rebel Junk. She was saying.
Oh, and also I was going to say, is anybody in the? Was there any questions that came about from our live? Because we're just yapping away, having a good time here.
Yeah, I think someone mentioned our other channel. Of course, we do the car channel, and I mean, it's really amazing how that channel has just.
There's a question there for the Rev.
Here. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Luis.
There's a question from Flippin' Eric for the Reverend asking if he's selling juicy fruit.
I actually, we were actually going Saturday somewhere, I think, to some of our friends' house, and NikkiT found an unopened box under the passenger seat, and I still have 2 boxes that I always, if I have multiple listings. If I have 50, I'm only going to list 49 because there may be a mistake somewhere. I may lose one. So I think the juicy fruit's going to go on my shelf of fame because, man, that stuff, I was amazed how good chewing gum sold on eBay.
You heard it here first. Reverend Resale is not perfect. He's on his inventory, so he'd like make sure those numbers are right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
I want to get to this new channel because we're getting close, and we don't want to keep you all over. I mean, you're welcome to stay a little longer, but we got about 10 minutes left or so till a full hour here.
Yeah.
Bear with me as I reform this question, David. It's like, you know, I was saying something to the effect of, how was I putting this? It's like that. So, like, if you're to ensure that your tank of gas, let's say that you as your own vehicle, you know, in terms of running low. You know, and if you're not being mindful that day and you're running your energy, whether you're doing your clergy work and you're trying to keep up your son or your daughter's like, I need time with you or something like, or Nikki comes along and then all of a sudden it's like YouTube time, or that's the same day. And then your reselling stuff just starts pouring in. You know, how do you make sure you're constantly monitoring that maintenance? It's like your cars. And by the way, we're getting to a point, y'all, in the live, is that he's got a new show. If you haven't seen it, you got to watch it. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing it, but I'm also going to ask the question, how are you able to do that? That's a second, you know. So it is kind of going on with reciprocal maintenance about yourself, you know, being mindful. I want to be conscious that I'm taking care of myself, not, you know, running that battery into the ground or whatever it is, or just, you know, burning up another transmission and whatnot. In terms of your body, mind, and spirit. But it's like, you know, what are you going to do to keep that car running smooth? You know?
Yeah, I think for us, I did that. I actually, the channel, the Rev Resale channel was growing. I think we had already gotten to 1,000 subs, and I sort of had a goal in mind that I was wanting the channel to really take off. So maybe you remember I did a 21-day listing eBay YouTube challenge. Every day I did a video. And I listed 21. I wanted to list 10, and then Colton at Redneck Resale said he was going to do 21. So I decided I was going to try to beat him.
You fell for that one.
But after every bit of that, I found out a lot of things about me. I found out that if I did a video a day and I tried to list like crazy, that those plates would begin to fall. So that was the begin of the time for me to know that I needed to slow down. There's only so much reselling content that I could produce because it's not full time, because it is fun time. And then there's other hobbies. Man, I've got so many other things that I like to do and enjoy. And I'd sort of given all of that up just to do reselling and to make reselling content. I've always enjoyed working on old cars. So I said, I'm going to put those two together. I'm just going to shoot a video of me doing that. And now it's fun time. So it's not like I'm not adding extra. There's 24 hours in the day, so I'm not adding extra time to the day.
It doesn't feel like it's extra work?
No, I think I'm just allocating it. My free time. I'm just cutting that piece of pie a little bit smaller. And it is hurting the reselling numbers when it comes to money wise, but that money has always been money that we use to be able to bless and help others with. And when I sell a car, if I restore a car and sell it, NikkiT of course wants a new ride, but we're wanting to we'll be able to do that even with this other channel because it's doing really well. It's doing really good.
I think that's one thing that's cool about the second channel is while, yes, reselling is a fun hobby for us. We love reselling. It's kind of a release for us. That's like our thing, our time. And it's really the same thing for Restoration. It's something he's done that as long as I've known him. Since we've been dating, he's had this passion for old cars, fixing things, selling them. So for him, it's kind of his release. That's kind of his getaway from, that may be his break from reselling that day or from.
I was going to say, you say getaway, but I was the immediate word. I'm sorry to interject on you, Nikki. You say getaway, but I think it's a get back to connection.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's like, because I'm an artist by nature. I have a master's in arts and whatnot in art history, and whenever I get a chance to go to a museum or just enjoy a good art book or something like that, it's like. I'm looking at this book to get away from everything else, but it's actually getting back into a connection that brings you some solid joy, and I believe that the great creator, however you want to refer to it, is, it's like wants you to be happy and feel joy in your life, and it's like if something you did naturally. So when Nikki first met the bad boy of Rev Long, and then now we know really what Rev Resale means, it's like
revving that engine. That's right.
But I think it's great to see you have another platform. And it's not necessarily that one's going to necessarily suffer. It's just like you said, you're allocating time, setting those boundaries. And who knows, you may be like, I can spin this plate, that, and put one on top of my head. Now let's go.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hear, you were starting to kind of dabble into that, Nikki. And it's like, do you remember when the first time you saw David and you saw this bucket full of like carburetors sitting around? Did you go?
I remember the first time I met him. Yeah, he was. I actually thought he was a little too old for me.
Yeah, she thought I was an old man.
I was still in high school. I was going into my senior year of high school, and my best friend was dating his best friend at the time. And we actually met through them. And the night that I met him, his best friend was coming to visit mine. I worked with her, and he would just happen to be there, and I was like, "Why?" She
went for a Snickers bar in the Kroger, and I wanted a Snickers bar too. So that was.
I heard this several times, but I love hearing it again. So it's like,
why is this old man out here hanging with these young people?
Yes.
At what point did you find those carburetors, and did you run at that point, or did you go? What's going on here?
Honestly and truly, when we first got married, it wasn't right away, but we've been married for a couple of years. When he started actually buying, it wasn't even the carburetors. Then it was actually all the old cars. And actually, at first, I was a little leery because my family, my dad was never in any of that. I never saw any of that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But he was good at it. We could buy a car, fix it, and sell it for a profit. Basically reselling. But
so in a way, that was the beginning stages of you seeing him taking something, so to speak, is that one man's junk is another man's treasure, and fulfilling it, which has now become the fruition of this show, this new program that you have called Restoration, because you are bringing things back to life, as resellers tend to do. Except you're not only doing it, you're doing it from the beginning stage to the end. You're restoring things. So tell us a little bit about that, David.
Yeah, that's I've got a couple of automobiles we've already restarted. I mean, I found them sort of dead and in the grave, and the idea is just giving them life again and bringing things back. And I think that's the heart, really, of a reseller. I mean, if you can find a pair of shoes that are dirty and ratty, but they're rare Jordans, and you clean them up, put new laces on them, and sell them for $300, we love it and enjoy it. Well, you make that something much bigger. That's an automobile for me. I can take an automobile that needs a lot more than just a cleaning and work on it. I enjoy that, put a little time in it, and turn around and sell it for 3 and 4 times the amount of money that I've got in it, and it's enjoyable.
The thing is that you enjoy doing it. I mean, it may seem like a lot of work, but to find something that you like doing, like my mom's husband was saying, well, Louie, you really enjoy reselling because you're good at it. And I'm like, and it took me a while to step back and go, because I don't get a lot of compliments. My dad passed away a while ago, so it's like, 14 years ago, I would have loved to hear him say that word for word, but I was hearing the echo in that. It's like, finding something that you enjoy. I don't care what it is. We are talking about reselling and stuff, but it is a mindful thing to go ahead and it's like having a group of friends, and and it's like you don't want to be patted on the back all the time and stuff, or having that good coach. Eric was using this analogy. You don't want that good coach. You want a coach that's going to push you along. But we do need the acceptance. You need that acceptance, and that's kind of why this community is growing and flourishing. I think the more boldly we go into it and take responsibility, like find somebody you can just say hi once in a while. Don't be rude, don't be a snob. And I'm not accusing anybody of it, but step up to the plate and and engage a little bit, and you'll find that you're going to enjoy this a little bit more. Like you enjoyed fixing them cars, you're going to enjoy getting involved in this community. It's like being a part of a church. The more you sacrifice yourself, the more you be of service, I think it really makes you grow better as a person. It can make you think better, it can make you feel better, but it also can make you grow consciously in a way where like, well, I didn't know, and it's like, there it is, and so we really thank you for being here. I know we kind of danced around some topics, but I think that there's a thread there with everything, and I don't know what to say other than it's always a joy to see you in the live chats, Nikki. You're just constantly, and I thought I was everywhere, but you're there. You're still a lot of places. You kind of slowed down.
Marketing manager.
True. I enjoy this community a lot. I mean, to me, this is one of those communities. If you're willing to be open and learn and just truly get to know people, this community is an amazing community.
Yeah.
So much to offer here, not just reselling, but friendship and support. There's several in the chat right now that,
and the Instagram,
Dan the Instrument for sure.
It's like NikkiT's brother with Baby Yoda.
That's my brother from another mother right there.
Hey, brother.
Louie.
But like, for example, he's one that, he'll message your Instagram and kind of check in. I mean, it goes beyond YouTube and it goes beyond reselling. It's people that truly care for one another, and they build
a glimpse of compassion in somebody else. It's just like, wow, I can restore my faith in humanity. Not that it was needed to be, but it's just it's always good to see somebody's light glow, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
that's the beauty in that. Luis, did you have anything you wanted to bring up or talk about? Because we're on a 4:00 mark. I would like to respect, David and Nikki.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we pretty much touched based on everything. But I wanted to ask, and just everything that they do, and I praise them both for doing this individually, but also doing it as a couple together. So, that's one thing that I've looked up to them both, to be able to balance everything that they do, and they do it perfectly. So,
I mean, and that you guys can cause inspiration for other couples that may not be, wanting to do this in a way, maybe we can do this one day, or something. And it may be a bond and a connection, or just between friends and whatnot,
Yep.
I think that's really kind of our goal and aim here is just everybody keep your mental strategy as high as you can. Maintain your focus, elevate it constantly, make daily aims and goals. Keep a journal, maybe like we talked about,
Right.
But truly just be aware of where, your mental well-being is. Check in with a friend, and if you can, more importantly, reach out to each other. say hi to everybody. Just ask how they're doing. Be a good friend. You can just be an ear. And that's all it takes, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
So on that note, we just want to thank everybody in the live chat. We appreciate everybody's connectivity and exchange. We hope that this is we hope this has been meaningful to somebody, you know, who's going to listen to this either now or later. So on that note, would you like to have some last words, y'all? And
we just thank y'all so very much for allowing us to be on here. We don't you know, we don't have all the answers, but I think as with this community, we can learn a lot from one another. And if there was one little nugget that somebody, I know I've got many, but if there was one little nugget somebody was able to mine, then it's been a good hour spent.
Yeah, most definitely. And everybody out in that live chat, they all have something wonderful and unique to share. I can name names and go on, but like Art, you know, I love watching him, and it's, you know, he always says, "Oh, I don't know if I'm like, dude, just your presence
is awesome, no doubt."
Great channel.
You know, and it's like we always love to praise Jennifer because she's always there for everybody in this selfless kind of way. And so I see that in each and everybody in the live, and we just thank you guys once again. And David and Nikki, we really appreciate you, and thank you for taking your time for being here.
Hi, Louie.
Thank y'all.
Speaking of which, hey, this is little Louis next to Louise. Say hi to David and Nikki there.
Say hi to David and Nikki. Say hi.
Hi.
Bye.
Hey, man.
That's our next reseller. All right. So on that note, we'll just count it down as 3, 2, 1. Luis, we'll say goodbye.
Yeah. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thanks to everybody in the chat. I want to thank Rev and David and Nikki for joining us as well. And I appreciate Jennifer dropping all the links on the chat as always. Thank you. Always much appreciated. So
next week, remind them about next week. Who's going to be here? If you don't mind.
She actually dropped the link on that as well.
Awesome.
I'll let you do that, Louie. Who we having next week?
So it is next week, and I started this, and Luis is going to do this. I'm making I always forget the term what it's called, but I make a little what do you call it? A folder in your YouTube thing where you put a playlist.
The playlist,
And now it's a little easier for people. If you go into the playlist, you will see, and I figured out how to connect Luis's and mine all together in the same playlist. So as we go along, we're going to try to be a little more mindful and just keep it together. So if you ever want to look back at an old show or one that's coming up, so that if you hear us saying, what they said somebody, but let me go back to the playlist, you'll find it. Is Christopher from Daily Refinement will be here next week, and we hope to bring you another wonderful and wise show like today. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. You guys have a great afternoon, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Have a productive week. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.